to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 115. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. So instead, we'll travel vicariously by inviting a guest to share their unique travel stories with us.
Today, we're talking to Lisa, who is now our most frequent guest, I believe.
Our most guested.
Most guesty of all of our guests, and she's making silly faces while we do our intro. Welcome, Lisa!
Achievement unlocked. I was thinking that, like, I'm to the level of friendship with your podcast that I am inviting myself over to your house now.
Yes.
And I'm also coming in and pouring myself a glass of water.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm probably going to ask before I take snacks.
I think you're right, because Lisa got back from this trip. No talk. I did not mention the podcast at all. She's just talking about the trip. It was a good trip. She's like, took a lot of notes for the podcast. And I was like, oh, okay.
Wait.
Yeah, I was like, Cheryl, I'm ready to go on the podcast now. And she's like, oh, okay. I guess I don't have to find a guest,
Yeah.
so that's good.
Yeah.
So you actually took notes for our podcast while on your vacation?
The day I got back, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that makes it official then that if one of us can't record, Lisa can just like sub in as a co-host, because she is now doing what Ryan and I do when we take trips and taking notes specifically for the podcast. So I mean, that's quite the level right there.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. I could probably do a little bit of a Cheryl impression for a while. I might pass out after a while.
I mean, you have known Cheryl her whole life.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. And then you might be like, oh, that's why she gets excitement headaches. Maybe you would give yourself an excitement headache. So.
Now, hold on
Good.
just a moment, Cheryl. I don't know if you've mentioned excitement headaches on our podcast before. And if you have, it's been a while.
I know. I don't think I have, which, I mean, I've gotten them on trips. So
I
it
think
is
you need to
relevant.
describe what an excitement headache is, because I don't know that that's something everybody gets.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very true, actually. Yeah, people usually think it's quite weird when I talk about my excitement headaches. And Lisa is a part of the origin story of my excitement headaches, because
That sounds bad.
I was getting headaches almost every Friday in high school. And I had no idea why. I'd never dealt with headaches before. And Lisa was in college at the time. And I just was talking to her about this. And she said, well, Cheryl, I think you're getting headaches from stress. And I was like, but I don't have stress. Everything's great. I'm really happy. And
I'm so happy.
yeah, I'm just so happy. I don't have stress. Because no one had told me about positive stress before. And she was like, yeah.
You stress. Yes.
She's like, positive stress. You are getting positive stress headaches. And it was typically on the days that my drill team had a performance, because I loved it so much that I get so excited to perform that I would give myself a headache. So I am one of the few. I've never talked to someone else who has dealt with this. I hope to meet someone like this someday, although I don't know if we'd be able to stand each other. But
Well, I get them too, but I think I get them less frequently than you do,
okay.
Cheryl. That's probably how I figured it out.
Yeah. And so just if I'm having like a really, really stellar day, there's a possibility I'm going to have a headache. So yeah, my body punishes me for being too happy. I mean, it comes back to like, I need to chill out. And so there's had events where I'm like, oh, like this event is really cool. Therefore, I need to sit and drink water and calm down. And that's because I get so excited. So
It's like a laptop getting overheated.
that's a that's a really good comparison. And you're like, it's just like doing its job. Why is it gonna? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like at my wedding, by the end of the wedding, I had a headache. But and like I do event planning, and typically at the end of the event I have a headache. But my last fundraising event I just like had a massive headache, and it went very well, and I had a massive headache by the end of it. It's like I think once the event was over, my body was able to like let go, and then that's when the headache really hit, was after it was done. Until I calmed down. I just got home and laid down for a while, and then I was fine. Like, just my body had to calm down. So, but I've gotten them on trips, and actually that's the only time I've thrown up on an airplane was because of an excitement.
You were so
headache.
excited.
Wait, which trip was that?
It was after our uncle's wedding. It was just like a really great weekend, and it was like the end of it. It was a lot of people time, and I think it was at the height of my stress headaches without fully understanding what was going on with them once again. Even though I learned in high school. And on the way home from that trip, I threw up on the plane just because of my excitement headaches.
Oh, wow. I guess you are a classic example of too much of a good thing.
Yes. Although I will never tell you that too much of a good thing is bad, but it ends up my body's like, no, you need to chill. So.
If you do not chill, I will make you chill.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man. Well, Lisa, hi.
Hi.
We're comfortable with this guest. It's the level of guest now where we just start talking about real life stuff as opposed to the small talk when you first come over, like.
Yeah, I've just come into your house and I'm like making you lie down because you're.
I'm just like, let's talk about stuff.
Well, man. Lisa, since the last time you've been on our podcast, we have stepped it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have a new set of intro questions for you since you've been on the podcast before.
On this charcuterie board that we're going to give you. I'm just going to keep going with this guest analogy.
Beautiful. So. Yes.
I'm
You've
sorry,
redecorated.
what is that word you just said?
Charcuterie?
What is that? Sounds like a
you would like it,
nonsense
it's
game.
It's mostly meats and cheeses.
Do you like meat and cheese?
Oh, it's food?
Yes. Yeah.
Charcuterie?
Yes.
Is it like a bad pronunciation of like a French word?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's like a semi-pronunciation.
Yeah, it's how Americans
it's like not
pronounce
exactly
it.
how it's spelled.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Charcuterie?
It's like if you imagine like a Lunchable, but like
for
way
adults.
fancier.
For adults.
Okay.
Like,
I mean, meats and cheeses, like crackers are just meats and cheeses.
And crackers are like olives or dried fruit or nut or
figs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just snacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But fancy.
But they're fancy snacks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've been doing that for dinner sometimes.
Us too. It's so fun.
Oh. Yeah, it feels like going out for like a happy hour or something like that.
Oh, see, that's so funny. We did basically a version of that growing up. We're never going to actually talk about your trip, Lisa. We did a version of that growing up. We called it Sunday night dinner. And as kids, we loved it. And my mom loved it because it was easy.
Yeah.
So we would do, it was like cheese slices, crackers, pepperoni. I mean, nothing fancy.
Yeah.
It's like, the
But
cheap
pepperoni
version
could
of it.
end up on a charcuterie board.
Sure.
Yeah.
If it was like artisan.
Yeah. I mean, salami is on a lot.
Yeah.
Similar.
And then we would do popcorn, which doesn't probably end up on a board because it's going to fall off of a board. But that was Sunday night dinner. And that's
so
we didn't
cute.
do it every
you
Sunday
were having
night,
charcuterie and you didn't even know it. So you're
go.
fancy, Ryan.
Look how fancy we were growing up.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
But I need to share. We're just going to keep going down rabbit trails. Now I need to share what we call popcorn in my household.
You don't call it popcorn?
Lisa, do you know what we call popcorn?
Gosh. I feel like it's going to be something either with Gracie or...
Nope.
You don't call it popcorn.
It's a euphemism
It's about...
or something.
It's a reference to something that Lisa said one time. We call it widow dinner.
Good.
What?
Oh. Widow dinner. I think I called a frozen yogurt that one time.
No, you were it was after Ben died, And it was long enough that you were making jokes pretty early on, but like you were like doing
Sure.
fine. And you had popcorn for dinner and you were like, I wish I could post on Facebook, like popcorn for dinner, #widow dinner. And then you're like, but then everyone's going to be bringing me a casserole and I don't want everyone to bring me a casserole. And so I told Daryl that story and he loved it. And I love just like popcorn for dinner every once in a while. But we don't even.
I know you do that, Ryan. Well, Ryan makes really good popcorn. Maybe not when you're just making it for yourself, but to social events.
Nice.
We'll bring excellent popcorn.
I love popcorn.
Fun.
Within the last 2 months, I have done popcorn for dinner.
Nice. That's so fun.
I mean,
it's the kind of joke that like my friends like, and I think even in your tone of voice, you can get that I'm doing fine and being snarky.
Yeah.
But then if you put something on social media, is that a cry for help?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yep.
So there was some stuff like that. Or some people would just be like, man, she shouldn't be joking about that stuff.
Yeah,
so, I don't know.
offended.
Like everyone's got different,
Yeah.
tolerance for dark humor. So.
Yeah. Yep.
That is wise, Lisa.
But in my house, we call it widow dinner.
Widow dinner. Oh my god.
Nice.
Well, let's get to those questions before we get off track again, because goodness knows we will be again. So the first of your 3 revisit questions is, when in your travel history have you been consciously aware of differences in culture in a significant way?
So you guys did a really good job picking out this question. Excellent. I thought about the first time that I noticed significant cultural differences, because it's happened a number of times. I got to go to Mexico City when I was a junior in high school. Our church had it called it missions exposure. It's different than our youth group's mission trips, where we went and painted something or did a day camp or some kind of project. This was just exposure to the culture, visiting the church's missionary, seeing what she did, and I think it was really good because we didn't have this idea of we're going to go fix things. It's more of a learning role. So I'm really glad I had the opportunity to do that. But they placed us in homes with families. So myself and KJ, who's also been a guest on this podcast, were together in a house with a family.
I forgot that.
And and it was just really cool to see things I had never thought about before, like, oh, they've got 3 kids in their 20s and they're all living at home and they're thriving and doing great, and that's totally normal here. And like, eating dinner at 11 p.m. That's just what you do. So I guess that was my first time to really because I was living with a family in another country. And they, I don't think that they, I don't know if they had a guest before, but it didn't seem like they were like trained to explain themselves to Americans, which was actually kind of cool because I got to just experience things, authentically, they were really lovely. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think seeing people in their own home is like such a good insight. I mean, just anyone, friends who live in the same place you do, like anyone, seeing them in their own home, I think you see so much of like their true selves and how they are naturally and what they're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And so seeing that in another country is so interesting because there's things that are so similar and you're like, oh, this is universal, and there's other things that you're like, wow, that is like not what I would go to if I were in my home or think to do or different things like that. So.
Oh, and milk tasted different, which, like, when you think about it, cows eat different things in different parts of the world, so it makes sense. But they made this powdered drink with like strawberry powder and milk, and I brought some home, and it didn't taste the same here because the milk isn't the same.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Second question. How has your travel style changed since the last time you were on our podcast?
So I've been thinking about this because every guest talks about their travel style. And it seems like there's often the two camps of the people that just show up and wander around and the people that are making an itinerary. And I decided that I really don't want to be either of those. I want to live my travel life like I live my normal life. And that is having lots of information and ideas and research, but like not really being dialed into an exact schedule. And kind of maybe figuring out the night before or even some of it day of as things go along. But then also having the resources to make those decisions and not feel like, well, I don't even know what's here. So that's what I did on the trip I'm talking about.
Yeah, so you're saying like it would be similar to like on a Saturday that like maybe Friday night you'd be like, hey, what do you want to do tomorrow? Or like maybe you'd wake up Saturday morning and figure it out from there, but you would already know your options because you're in your hometown. So like what if you took a trip like it's Saturdays in your hometown?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I have lots of things projects I might be working on or people I want to get in touch with, but I'm probably not going to figure that out until the night before or day of, depending on how things are going. So
yeah.
But still doing the research ahead of time so that you feel prepared for making the decision on the fly.
Exactly, yeah. Both because I don't want to miss something that would have been really cool, and this is my 7 wing coming out, and because for me doing like, I don't know, I would want to do the research, and doing tons of research during vacation doesn't sound as fun as actually being out and doing things.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It feels like kind of a bummer if you're like, oh, actually I feel like a hike, and then you're like, oh, are there hikes around here? And then you spend like an hour like on your phone looking at reviews of hikes and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It is nice to know your options. Yeah.
Yeah. So this vacation that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, we were able to do it that way. So you'll kind of see how it plays out.
Awesome.
That's cool.
It's almost like you planned that for us.
Yeah, I decided to travel to have material. No, it was more just like, this is such a cool trip. Oh my gosh, I have an outlet for for processing how amazing this trip was.
Yes.
That's so good. You know what? You're welcome.
Yeah, we did it for you.
So
It wasn't selfishly motivated at all because it's not that Cheryl and I just wanted to talk about travel all the time.
Well, it's a service you offer to your friends and community.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ooh.
That's exactly what it is.
There we go.
Travel
so
service.
At the end of our episodes, we should be saying, well, Lisa, you're welcome for being on our show today.
All right, the last of the intro questions, and then we can dive into your story. What is something you've done while traveling that you never want to do again?
Okay, so I never want to do this again. Maybe I will have to get to where I want to get, but I would prefer to not share lodgings with lots of people again, particularly being on a houseboat with lots and lots of people.
I feel like there needs to be more detail behind that. What's the story behind that, Lisa?
So 3 years ago, I went to Lake Powell with my in-laws, the Ehlis. It's a beautiful place that, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a deep lake with like red cliffs that plunge down, 1,000 feet really quickly. And a lot of people go rent houseboats and hang out, and then we had a water ski boat too. So this has been like a place they've been dreaming about going for years, and I had the opportunity to come along because I just married Jeff. Overall, I'm really glad to visit, but we have totally different sleep schedules. And at the time, I was having a lot of anxiety about sleeping, so I wasn't really getting to sleep till maybe 1 or 2 a.m. And the last 3 hours, it would just be totally dark, so I couldn't do anything, except for maybe go pace on the deck of the boat outside. And then people would start getting up at 6. So by the end of this trip, I was totally exhausted, had a permanent headache.
Wow.
Yeah, and I, like I said, I just married in the family, so I was like, trying to make a good impression. And oh man, they were also trying to be very considerate and doing whatever they could, but there's only so much you can do when there's 8 people sleeping in the same room.
Yeah.
And that's also where breakfast is.
Oh, it's just I've never been on a houseboat, so there's just
they're
one
so
room.
cool.
It's like a studio apartment, kind of, in that
Yeah,
sense?
pretty. I mean, there's different sizes, but the one we had was 1 bedroom. So my parents-in-law were in the bedroom, and then there's like a couch and a dining table that could fold out to beds in the main living area, and the kitchen, and then there was also outside decks, but it was pretty windy, so we generally didn't sleep out up there. But yeah, Cheryl, I think when our family did it, we were in a loft.
Yeah, also we were kids. So it was like we were in this loft area that was like you could sit up in it but not be much taller than that. And we just had rows of sleeping bags with all of us, and it was no big deal because we were in elementary school.
Yeah,
and
that was fine.
It was so fine. Like, it was probably really crowded on that houseboat. We did it 2 times too. Like, I don't remember it being crowded. I don't remember that. Like,
Yeah.
it was great. Yeah.
Well, and maybe maybe it was just a stage where I was at with anxiety around sleep that it was just a bad time to do something like that for me. But
yeah,
I think I am a lot more particular as an adult about my sleeping.
But I understand that too. I'm similar to you, and not so much with the anxiety, but I tend to be more of a night owl, and I'm definitely not a morning person, but I'm also a light sleeper. So if people are up, if we're in the same room and people are up at 6, I will be awake at 6. Whether or not
totally.
I'm done sleeping, like even if people are trying to be quiet, like it'll wake me up.
Well, and it's a thing about like persistent noise, even if it's quiet, if it keeps going, then it'll keep me up.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah, so they might listen to this podcast, and I really I really appreciate the trip overall. That was just something I could think of that I would prefer to not do again.
Yeah.
If I can avoid it.
Well, and I think that's the thing is like with everyone having a different sleep schedule, then everyone's going to feel guilty. You know what I mean? Like you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, they went to bed. I don't want to keep them up. So I need to be quiet and not use a light. And then in the morning, they're like trying to live their life and have their morning. And like, oh shoot, do we have to keep being quiet and for how long? And, you know, and so.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah, so eventually I would just sit up because I was like, they need to just be able to do their thing and like sit there with coffee for like an hour or 2, not doing too much. And my nieces were trying to get me to play with them. I was like, not yet. Not yet.
Oh, and they were little
huge.
kids too.
Yeah.
See, that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't do quiet very well.
They can't sleep in either.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
That's so true.
Yeah, you know, with Jack Cheryl, that's like not a thing.
Oh yeah, if he stays up too late, he still wakes up at the same time, and then he just didn't get enough sleep, and we didn't get, you know, and so it's, it's like, it is what it is with kids and sleep schedules. Yeah.
Oof. Ugh. I'm thankful I don't have kids. Okay. On that note, what is the trip that you just did that you were so diligent to take notes for us?
So I went to South Idaho, and this was Coronavirus Vacation Plan D.
Oh, jeez.
I literally booked 3 vacations before this that we canceled, and spent varying amounts of time planning things for the trips.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I'm actually really happy with the trip we ended up going on. As a Washingtonian, I think we tend to overlook Idaho. It seems like it's human nature to make fun of your neighbors wherever you live. And I think it's just a little far to get there for a weekend. Although Cheryl, you did do Sandpoint for a weekend.
Yeah.
But like South Idaho is even with Oregon. And that was something as I was like starting to think about like where can we drive that's not on fire right now.
Yeah.
Jeff said, the Rockies are in Idaho. And I'm like, I guess they are. I hadn't thought about that before. So I looked at the map of the Rockies, and indeed, they go right through the state. So I started Googling, and I started with a Facebook group I'm in called Girls Love Travel. And that's something I don't know if you talked about for research before, but if you're part of a travel Facebook group, you can just go on and like do a word search for the area you're interested in and then see what's already been posted.
Oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about that. I've thought about scrolling through them.
Yeah.
But a search is so smart. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and some people in this Facebook group are like long-term travelers, like they're living out of a van, working digitally, or they'll work for a while and just then travel for months at a time. So they're going to places and really exploring. So there's some good information in this group. And so, yeah, I just searched for Idaho and I saw other people asking for tips, which is exactly what I would have done.
Mm-hmm.
And then people who are posting about their trips.
Nice.
So I took a bunch of notes from those. And then I started doing what Cheryl has done before and marking things on Google Maps. And after a while, I could just see where there was more of a density of locations that I was interested in. And a lot of it was in the south part of the state because there's more mountains there, hiking. There's lots of hot springs. Boise is down there. And also south is harder to get to. We had a week vacation. So we're like, we've got enough time to drive a little farther.
Yeah. That's
one
cool.
of the vacations we canceled was Yosemite, which would have been a slightly farther trip. I was telling Cheryl I was trying to steal her vacation. She also almost went to Yosemite this year. But then there was a lot of smoke at that point. So we ended up canceling that one.
So, Lisa, before we get into this trip, we got to hear a little recap of trips number 1, 2, and 3 before we got to trip number 4 here. So we got Yosemite.
The trips that never were.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So trip number 1, I did not spend too much time on, but Jess' friend was going to get married in Atlanta, so I thought, gee, I've never been to Georgia. I don't know them. Let's go to this wedding.
Yeah, that's a traveler right there.
Yeah. And then someone told me about Savannah, which I guess is like the oldest planned community in the United States, at least according to some people, and that just historic architecture planning is super interested to me. So with that one, though, we basically just had a plane ticket, and that's it. And I had maybe spent like a couple hours reading about things online, but that's it. So with COVID, they canceled the wedding pretty quickly. And then, I don't know if, Ryan, maybe you didn't think this, but back in the spring, I was like, yeah, we'll be traveling again in the fall.
Oh,
so,
I definitely didn't think it was going to last as long as it did. Yeah, no, I was on the same boat.
Yeah, Ryan, when he was scheduling a new Disneyland trip, you were considering November at one point, Ryan.
Yep.
Yeah. So I thought maybe you would be around, but we would have flattened the curve or whatever, and it'd be kind of under even. Not surging like it is now. Yeah. So we booked a trip to Boston because that is pretty high on my bucket list. And with that one, we got an Airbnb in the city. We were going to try renting a room for the first time in Airbnb, so I'll still have to try that someday. But it was an affordable way to be right in the middle of the city. And then just spend time walking around the city, and then maybe a couple days driving and seeing the leaves.
Okay, so this
I've
is
still never been to Boston in the fall.
Someday.
Someday.
Why is Boston a bucket list item for you?
I've heard it's the most walkable city in the United States.
It is.
And yeah, Cheryl's been there. And I love walking around cities. It's one of my favorite things, especially historic cities with cool buildings. And that's a city where you can just do a lot of self-guided tours, and there's a lot of like interesting foods there. Like there's a little Italy, and then like you can get haggis, and apparently there's like a little Australian food scene there. Yeah, and then also like it's like, oh, we can go to like, you could drive to Rhode Island in an hour, like, so we could rent a car for a couple days and just kind of go along the coast, see a couple more, or just stay in Massachusetts even and see the leaves there. So
if you're like, Boston sucks, then just like
you
somewhere else.
And then we held on to that trip for a few days and a few months even, like for a while we were like, well, even if the museums are closed, that's not the top reason I want to go there. So maybe we can still go there and just do more outside things as long as we can eat in restaurants. But
Yeah.
Massachusetts has the stipulation right now that you either have to quarantine for 2 weeks if you visit, or you have to have a negative test result for COVID within 3 days of arriving. So I think that's a little tight with our testing timelines currently. Like it might not have come through in time. And that was stressing Jeff out. So we were like, okay, we should just go somewhere that's more pure outside, where we're not going to be near a lot of people. That's better for us to not spread disease at this time. We won't be disappointed if everything's canceled. Let's go to Yosemite. I think because Cheryl was looking at it, Jeff was talking about how that's somewhere he would like to go sometime in his life. So then I canceled everything, and Cheryl gave me the advice too that, like, you're not sure about Boston. You should just do something that you're not worried about. Cancel Boston, do something you're excited about that's a little bit more certain. So I chose California.
Oh.
Yeah. And that one, I booked a couple heated tents in Yosemite. I still want to check that out someday. There's both in the park and outside of the park. They're like more like $80 a night, but and they're like a hard-sided tent. So I'm not totally sure how different it is than a cabin. I don't think there's electricity and plumbing. But
it's not
they
a
do
yurt.
have heating. Yeah, it's not a yurt.
Okay.
It didn't look like a yurt. It was rectangular.
Okay.
I think a yurt has to be round, probably.
I mean, that's
I've
the
only
picture
seen
I get
round
in my
yurts.
head. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
All yurts are round. I think definition. So yeah, so we had that all, like, I had our hikes planned out. I did spend a good amount of time planning Yosemite. We were planning to drive over the pass. We were going to hit the Tioga Pass, like, before freezing, probably. But apparently it's a good time to visit Yosemite in the fall if it's not on fire, because there's not a lot of people there and it's not really hot. I love things not being hot.
Yeah.
I like hiking in the fall, so we were pretty excited about that. But then it was looking like we can probably still go, but the air is going to be hazy, and, like, it might not be nearly as pretty if we can't see as far because the air is hazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, or maybe the fires will get worse and then we just won't be able to go. And so, again, I was like, okay, I want to do something that we can definitely do. So we canceled that vacation and decided to go to Idaho. Because basically I was looking at a map. It's like, we can't go to Canada because of COVID. We've been to Oregon a fair amount. Yeah, it was not on my bucket list or anywhere near the bucket. But not even the same room as the bucket, I don't think. But it's really a hidden treasure.
Yeah, that's how I felt when we rescheduled our trip to Idaho and Montana this summer. Is I was mainly excited just because Daryl was excited, and I was like, cool, happy for him, and I'll go anywhere. And then it was like, oh my gosh, oh no, we need to come back here. This is great. And so, yeah, big fan.
Yeah, and I've been trying to figure out why people don't talk about it more. And I think maybe if you look at any, like, category, like the most spectacular rocks and the, like, most dramatic hikes, and, like, there's a place in the U.S. that would be higher on the list, or maybe a couple places. So it's not like, the top coolest thing of any category, but it is really cool in a lot of different categories. And it's not crowded.
I'm just wondering, do they just not spend a lot on their tourism? Like, is that why people aren't
Like
going to
their marketing.
Idaho very much?
Because, I couldn't tell you one thing that's in Idaho. Like, I could tell you city names. I mean, I guess Coeur d'Alene has, what's it called? That amusement park, the theme park.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called either. And the lake, obviously. Yeah. And then everyone knows about Sun Valley.
Silverwood. That's the one. Yep. And then, and I mean, I guess there's, skiing there, I suppose, or something. And I know Boise's the capital.
It is indeed.
I couldn't tell you anything else that's in
I checked,
Idaho.
it still's the capital.
So Lisa, you said that it's this hidden treasure. I think you need to tell us what some of those cool whatevers, stones, coins, whatever you want to do with the analogy, the shiny things that are cool that are in Idaho.
The treasures, coins are pretty good. So yeah, we did a lot of hiking. And that's something I've been getting more interest in lately as just a way to see beautiful places and get exercise. And we've been working on our hiking gear already. So some of this hiking was in weather that was a little bit inclement, like one time it was snowing on a hike.
Oh.
But there's that saying, there is no bad weather, there's bad gear. That's, there's limits to that, obviously. But the sentiment behind it, I do agree with that. You can improve your gear and have a more comfortable experience. So we both got wool long johns like the night before leaving on our trip. And those were, because we were looking at the weather, we're like, oh, it's going to be 30s and 40s some of these places. So that was pretty key to feeling comfortable. And then we were working on we both have hiking backpacks already, but we got some more emergency gear because we were like, we're out in the middle of nowhere. Like, we need to be able to, have a solar blanket and some first aid. So yeah. And then we did some hot springs. Yeah, I have my notes kind of go through our itinerary, in post, I guess. Like I was saying a little earlier, I planned it based on like density of things we were interested in. So we started each day with more possibilities than we had time for. But we just did what our top things, what we felt like that day. So we started out by going to McCall, which is about halfway up the state, kind of past Pullman if you're driving from Washington. And then you go south and a little bit east of Pullman. And that one is like one of those towns that seems like it's got something for every season. Like it's got a lake and fishing for the summer, water sports. And then in the fall, there's hunting. And in the winter, skiing. And it's like one of those towns where you can tell that they have a design review board, or at least I can tell, because like
as an architect,
like,
you can tell.
Yeah, so you can tell if you look at places like an Ace Hardware or a McDonald's, and they look a little bit fancier than normal. Like they've got like a decorative flares on the outside. That means the city is like, hey, we've got standards here. You can't just come do whatever you want. Like you've got to make it like look like it fits the theme of the town, which is kind of a rustic mountain feel in this town. So it was a pretty cute town because of that.
So I'm picturing like Bend, Oregon then.
Yeah.
Like they have a Safeway that looks like a lodge. And stuff like that.
Leavenworth.
Well, obviously Leavenworth is like the extreme of that.
Right.
That of like listen up Starbucks. Sure. You want to come to our town, you're going to play by our rules. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And having worked at the design review boards, there's some good things about it, and there's some annoying things about it. Like they try to design with lists of things that you need to put on the building, and I'm like, you can't just throw a bunch of things on a building and have a good design like randomly. But anyway, that's speaking from my professional frustrations with the process. The results can be nice sometimes. So this town was pretty cute. So we drove north of that town into the Payette National Forest, and we ended up going to like 5 or 6 national forests on this trip.
Cool.
And went on logging roads, and we also planned using some listicles. So Jeff found a couple of hikes to some mountain lakes just from some listicles.
What's a listicle?
To do. Like little like top 10 things to do in McCall, that
like
kind of thing.
TripAdvisor list type of things.
That's called a listicle?
Yeah, that's right, isn't it, Cheryl?
I've never heard that word before. What I wanted to say when Ryan said what's a listicle is nothing what's a listicle with you. So that's my knowledge of listicles.
I think there are mostly created by people trying to, I don't know, like tourism buzz, trying to create that kind of thing, or bloggers trying to boost their blogs.
Listicle. A piece of writing or other content presented wholly or partly in the form of a list.
Fancy.
Oh.
Gee, thank you. That's
well,
helpful.
that's even more general than I realized.
Writing a
It doesn't
listicle.
even say
The 11-step
internet.
guide and why they're awesome.
Yeah, I enjoy them. But yeah, for these hikes, we actually wore a yellow vest because we were like, there's hunters in the area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Oh.
we need to not look like neutral colors, like game.
That's how it was out at where I lived in Eastern Washington. Is I wore bright colors whenever I went hiking and got my dog a little orange vest as well, because during hunting season it was like, yeah, watch out. So yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And that's basically who we saw out in this forest. But it's really pretty. It's like a area that had a fire maybe 30 years ago, so it's still pretty sparse. I'll send you pictures. It snowed on this hike. Then we drove to our next location. We were listening to a podcast I would recommend to your listeners called It's a Continent, and it's about Africa.
Oh.
And the two hosts are these lovely British ladies whose parents were immigrants from Africa. So you've got the British accent and some personal knowledge, and then they research different countries and do an episode. Each episode covers a different country.
I need to listen to that. Like a
It's
lot.
great, yeah. Yeah, I'm listening to the Rwanda one right now, and it's cool. It talks about how it went from being a place where how they got to a place of having a genocide, and now it's one of the safest places in the world and one of the best places for women. And like,
Oh,
how did they
really?
get from genocide to that?
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'd recommend that episode especially. And we also were listening to a book on overdrive. So anyone we're in King County, but I think a lot of other library districts do this too. There's an app you can download and check out digital audiobooks from the library. And at least our library has a great selection. So I know something that you talk about is entertainment on the road, having things ready to go. And it's like a free way to get some new material. And generally, like, with life, it's hard to keep track of an audiobook. When normal life, I get interrupted a lot more when I'm listening to things, but on a road trip, it's a great time to just dig into something.
Yep.
So
for our family, and I think your family as well, and some of our listeners will totally get this, and some will have no idea what we're talking about. When we went on road trips growing up, we listened to Adventures in Odyssey.
Yeah.
da, 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 da.
Yep. If you have no idea what we're talking about, it's okay. You don't need to worry about it. But it was fun growing up.
For sure. We would get a new one sometimes before our road
Yep.
trip.
Yes.
And that was so
And they have
exciting.
new episodes for the road trip. Yeah.
Exactly. In those little, they looked like movie cases.
VHS
right?
movie
Like the
did,
old
yeah.
VHS movie cases. But then you would open them up and they would have 6 cassette tapes, right? Like 3 on one side and 3 on the other side.
So good.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I guess that would have been 6 hours of content.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty good. So then we drove down to Loman, which it's by way of a bunch of scenic byways. And I like, one of the things I did while researching was looking up scenic byways in Idaho. And when we were on these types of roads, sometimes we wouldn't like see anybody going our direction for an hour. Like no towns, no cars passing us. Pretty relaxing driving, except for the one night where we were out in the middle of nowhere in the dark, and you could literally see a car 2 miles away coming towards you, except for there was a little bit of an illusion where it looked like the car was directly in my lane for a long time of it coming towards me.
Just because it was so far away?
Yeah, because the road, it tapers to a point 2 miles away.
And you couldn't see the road itself far enough ahead to see that they were actually on the other side. You just saw the headlights.
And I couldn't see, like, I knew when they first appeared, oh, they're 2 miles away, we're fine. But then they would be getting closer and closer and closer, and then eventually I would start to think, wait, are they in my lane? Oh, wait, they're not. But there were twice where I kind of, like, flinched and started to brake because I just got so, like, in my head about that.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and Jeff was like, what's wrong? Are you okay? Like, what's going on?
You're like having a
He's
spasm
like,
while you're driving.
yeah, there's like nothing happening. It's like totally quiet road. There's a car really far away. I was like, no, you don't understand. I thought it was gonna like hit me, so I was trying to swerve. But yeah, other than that, it was pretty great. And beautiful drives. We drove to Loman. We stayed at a yurt. So that's something that I have always wanted to do, and it was round.
Was it cool?
And it's true. It was super cool.
Really?
You would like it, Cheryl.
I want to stand here.
It's called Loman Inn and Yurts is where I stayed.
Nice.
And we booked through Airbnb, and there's like 5 yurts up on the hill. It's really glamping because they don't have plumbing or electricity. Fortunately, we were ready to go. We had our flashlights for nighttime, and then there was an outhouse down the hill. I also came on this particular trip. I came prepared with like Ziploc baggies with toilet paper in them, so that we could just go pee in the woods, either if we couldn't find a town or on a hike. But the outhouse, there was a lot of really nice outhouses in Idaho, you guys. Like, I don't think we ran across any gross outhouses. They all smelled okay, at least, and were pretty clean. They seemed clean. So most of them said, please shut the toilet seat when you leave to keep the smell in. And most of the time it was open, but it still didn't smell too bad. So yeah, this was great. After we checked into the yurt, we went to a Hotsprings that was down the road in a park. And this is our first time visiting. It closed at 9 p.m., so it was technically still open. But we did not know the layout of the hot springs at all. Like, wait, is this a big pool? Is it going to be some waterfalls with some scattered pools? So we get to the park, and it's pitch black, and we're just, like, wandering around looking for where these hot springs are. We eventually climbed down a rocky hillside towards the river, and we found a pool right by the river. And it was really cool.
Wow.
Pretty disorienting, but really cool. And you could see the stars above, because we're out in the middle of nowhere. The next day and then I got too hot and I felt sick, and then I had trouble getting back up.
Oh.
That would make sense.
So the next day we went to the same place, but we checked it in the day at one point just to see what it was like, and we found a place near the parking lot. So we went back the next night. We just went like right off the parking lot and like laid down, and I also regulated myself a little bit better. But that was awesome. The inn, they sold pizza and beer, and we went in, and it was like just us and the owner and his dad. He was like, "That's my dad. He's blind." We're like, okay. And then we talked to the owner for like our whole dinner, and he bought our beers and everything. Like, we found that a lot of people in these small towns are, just to give your listeners a little framing device. My husband and I are both white, and we're straight, and this is our experience in Southern Idaho. Everyone was really nice to us and really friendly. So I can't speak for other people's experiences, unfortunately, but we didn't see anything that made us uncomfortable personally. So yeah, we talked to lots of people. We went to the town of Stanley, which is this cute little town in the middle of nowhere. We went hiking out of there. We were using the All Trails app, which Daryl actually recommended to me.
Oh yeah, it's a really good app.
It's a really good app. So especially if you're like, I had some of the hikes planned out, or some of them were like, we had possibilities, but this particular day, Jeff's shoulder was hurting, so we didn't end up doing the 10-mile hike I had planned. We did like a 6-mile hike with a lot less climbing. And we found that on the app. So we just looked at where we are, and it shows you hikes in your area. It shows you how hard they are. It gives you it tracks your GPS, So sometimes it's hard to find a trailhead, and this app is really helpful with that.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw the Sawtooth Mountains at the end of the hike. They are really dramatic and cool. Like if you imagine Sawtooth, they're just like really jagged and sharp and pointy and sticking up. So we walked to a point where we saw a vista of them spread out before us.
Nice. I think
yeah,
I also
and
like
fun.
on the All Trails app that they have people's reviews. And I love that
Yes.
because you can see when they did the hike. So they're like, that was only a month
Yeah.
ago. And they're like, oh, this thing doesn't exist anymore. Or like, it's still snowy here. Or it was great. You know, it's so seeing like a recent person's experience with it is nice when it comes to something like a hiking trail where it's like, is this still there and in good condition? And can I go to it? So, yeah, that's really good.
Because sometimes like maybe some of the trail's been eroded or wayfinding is hard, things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad he recommended that. We sat for an hour and read by a lake there.
Aw, that's lovely.
It's pretty idyllic. Got some good food, and then the next day we went to a ghost town called Bayhorse.
Ghost town?
The ghost town was actually closed for the year. It was an old mining town that no one lives in anymore.
Okay, but it's a ghost town. Isn't it always closed?
It's a tourist site.
I know.
So I think it's had.
I know.
Yeah. But the ghost lives there.
So could you not go in it then at all because it was closed, or what was that like?
Well, I think we weren't technically supposed to go in it, but we did.
Very edgy.
Yeah, we saw a couple people in there, and we paid the $5 to park that we were supposed to, and then we just climbed over the fence into the town. It's not that big, but it's got these really scenic old buildings. It's got the mining buildings that kind of stagger down the hillside. I think they're framing a shoot where they're panning for gold. And there's like stands of cottonwood trees that were turning golden. All sorts of beautiful trees on this trip. Fall is a great time to go on this. Then we drove to Chalice, which is a town that there's really not much there, but it was on the way to where we're going, and we wanted lunch. So we were like, okay, let's find a cafe. So we're driving down Main Street, and we saw a sign that said enchiladas. We're like, okay, sure. So we turned, and there's a like Victorian inn that says enchiladas in the front of it.
A Victorian inn?
Uh-huh. We're like, okay. So we like wander in, and the front like sitting room is totally decorated to the nines and totally still, like not a sound. We're like, okay, where do we go? We start wandering further back into the house until we eventually get to the kitchen where the proprietor and the owner are sitting together just talking, and they've got a like basically it's like a kind of a large home kitchen setup, and she's got enchiladas in Pyrex pans, and it turns out it's like a B&B, but then they make like one thing for lunch each day, and then they put out a sign and sell it. So
that makes so much
so we
more
got it.
sense.
Oh, it was so good. They made the enchilada chicken with like some mole powder.
Oh yeah,
which was really good. And then they included a brownie, and it was $8. And they also gave Jeff free coffee. And they talked to me about their 120-year-old house, which is super.
You got a
interesting.
tour for free then.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay,
and my house is.
No, go ahead.
My house is 103, so I was like, hey, so how are your foundations? They're like old house talk.
Okay, so I got to go back because you said this very quickly. You listed all the different things that you ate, and then you said it was $8. I couldn't tell if the brownie was $8 or if the whole meal was $8.
The whole meal.
Okay, that's impressive.
Yeah, enchilada and brownie, and it was pretty like 2 enchilada sticks basically. So
enchilada sticks.
Yeah, that was
I don't know if I'd use the word
so
sticks
like
to describe an
with
enchilada,
that, like
but-
I am like I was appreciating some of those things where, like, yeah, I can do some research ahead of time and plan. But then if I leave things a little open, you can find the random inn that's selling enchiladas that wouldn't have been on the internet, I don't think.
Yeah.
So.
Totally.
Yeah. And then we were on our way to, this is probably the thing that was the most out of the way that we did. But we went to, it's called Goldbug Hot Springs. And it's a 2-mile hike that is like 900 something feet climb. And mind you, these hikes are like at a mile above sea level. I didn't know Idaho was so high above sea level, but it's kind of like Colorado, how high it is. At least the cities, and not the mountains of Colorado, but the like cities. And so it was kind of hard. I'm not gonna lie. I was like sweating quite a bit on this hike. But and I could feel the lack of oxygen in my legs, like they were a little bit crampy. But then you get to the top, and it's a hot spring that's like in a ravine on the mountain, and you can see down the mountain, and you can see like all these trees turning color, and it's like being in an infinity pool because like the hot spring like has a waterfall that goes down, and it's like. I found a list of hot springs in Idaho, and this is the only one that got 5 stars, and it's totally deserves it.
Wow.
The water is like the perfect temperature where it's warm, but you don't get sick. You can just sit there for like 45 minutes and enjoy. So there were like, so this was a Wednesday in October, and there were people there, out in the middle of nowhere on a 2-mile hike.
Wow.
It's that good.
So maybe don't go there in the summer, though.
Yeah, I would say, like, unless you want crowds, which we did not. Like, you maybe would have to wait for a spot in the pool if you went at a really popular time. But we were able to get right in, and there were people there from who worked at Yellowstone and people who were from San Diego, and we were just talking to them, and they were telling us about the time that, like, a bison got on a roof in Yellowstone and broke through the roof.
Oh, jeez.
So, that was a major highlight.
Cool. That's so cool.
I think I mentioned that, yeah, Jeff's been having shoulder issues. They're getting better now, but he couldn't really even drive more than a couple hours without irritating his shoulder. But he got to soak in a hot tub, like, probably 5 days of our 8-day trip between the springs we were going and then one of the hotels that we stayed at.
Nice.
So
that's great.
Yeah, he was pretty happy about that. Yeah. So yeah, and then that day we had been hoping to go to Craters of the Moon, which is a dormant lava field, but we just ran out of time before the sunset. So that's something that. And there's also some sand dunes out there. At this point, we're going out to, like, southeast Idaho. And then we stayed the night right across the border from Wyoming.
Wow.
The next day, we went to the Grand Tetons National Park.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
yes.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so Cheryl has been there with me. And we went back to a lake that we took the ferry across with our grandparents. I think you were in high school and I was in college. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was cool.
Jenny Lake. Yeah.
Nice.
So you can hike around Jenny Lake. It's an 8-mile hike.
Really?
So and this was cool because we had a few potential hikes planned, but then when we were soaking in the hot tub or the hot springs at Goldbug Hot Springs, someone's like, "Oh yeah, we were just in the Tetons yesterday. You need to do Jenny Lake," and we were like, "Oh, okay, we'll look it up." So we ended up doing that.
Oh, nice.
It was really cool, and it's a cool hike because there's not much elevation gain, but you can like see the mountains like from different angles as you go around the lake. They're right at the base of the mountains. And that hike, we actually saw quite a few people. Like, it wasn't crowded, but it's a national park, so it was a little bit more populated than these national forests we'd been going to. And I was a little bummed because we had to pay $35 to get into Grand Tetons, and then almost everything was closed. Like, the bathrooms were closed, the gift shops were closed, the visitor centers were closed. There were a few outhouses, but they were kind of hard to find. So I was like,
Do you know why everything
guys,
was
like,
closed?
COVID, right?
I think it's like off season. Probably COVID as well.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know between those two.
There's a lot of bathrooms I've seen at like hikes or different parks or different things like that that are closed, but they still let people go there. And then as a result, people just go right outside of the bathroom. So, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It's because it's like, okay, if you're
Yeah.
going to let guests in and stay all day, they have to be able to go somewhere, and so
Absolutely.
and a lot of those have been COVID related that I've seen. And so that's
Mm.
kind of a bummer. Yeah.
Yeah, and the pit toilets were okay. There just weren't too many of them. But yeah, that was a gorgeous day. We drove through Jackson Hole on the way. So we were staying in Victor, Idaho, which if you want to go to Grand Tetons and have a little bit more of an affordable stay, it's a good place to go because it's an hour away. And it's a gorgeous 1 hour drive over the pass and then down through Jackson. So we had an Airbnb there, which was really nice because we did some laundry. And one of the nights, the second night, we just had a night in, which on this trip, a lot of the times we were driving in the morning and then we were doing activities in the afternoon and then we were driving in the evening. So it was pretty relaxing, but we also just didn't have a lot of downtime, like at the locations we were staying at. So, but this was a time we stayed 2 nights in the same place. So we had like a night
nice.
in.
That is so nice. Yeah.
It was, yeah. And we like read and went to bed early, and I totally, you guys, I was talking about my sleep issues. I totally reset my sleep schedule on this trip because when the sun was up, we could do things, and after dark, we couldn't do too much except for drive.
Yeah.
So, and the sun was setting at like 6:30 or 7. So I was getting up at like 8, which for me is kind of early. And this is 8 Idaho time, which is 7 our time.
Nice. Yeah, when I went there, I totally forgot that it was a different time zone, and I got very confused at first.
Yeah, well, in Idaho is, I looked at the time zone split, and it goes across the state. So northern Idaho is the same time zone as us in Washington, but then southern is like mountain time. So, yeah. But yeah, that was cool. And the next day we started going back west, and we went along I-84, and then took a detour south to City of Rocks National Reserve. So this is like, I think maybe the difference is it doesn't have as much funding as a national park because there were dirt roads getting in there and through it. We drove on a number of dirt roads on this trip, but it was absolutely gorgeous. Like, I think if you compared it to some of the Utah sites, like it's maybe not quite as dramatic as like in Arches or Zion, but it's kind of a similar idea where there are these magnificent rocks and they're more like a yellow-green color instead of red, but still like really colorful and really popular place for rock climbers apparently. I didn't see any there while I was there, but we drove through the park and we would stop and do like maybe like a mile hike in each place we stopped. So we stopped like 4 places and did mini hikes just to see that area.
Cool.
And yeah, it's totally. And again, like the trees were turning colors, and yeah, there's some of those rocks that had the holes in them, so there was like couple window arch rocks. And it was free to get in. We just bought a $2 map at the visitor center. And there were lots of toilets, you guys. Like every single parking lot. I mean, there were pit latrines, but they were really easy to find. So I was like, oh my goodness, you guys need to talk to Grand Tetons. So we left and we could see Utah from on our way out. It was that close to Utah, so that was kind of cool. And then we drove back to the freeway and went to a hot springs that was like a swimming pool where they use the thermal heat to heat the swimming pool. So it was like cooler than some of the natural ones we went into, but warmer than a normal pool. It was fine. It was kind of cool because there was like skeletons everywhere for Halloween decorations, like in the lifeguard chair. There's a skeleton. And then, we also went to Shoshone Falls in Twin Falls, and it's called the Niagara of the West. It is enormous, but in the fall, it is pretty much dried up. So I have a disappointed picture of me at Shoshone Falls, but not too disappointed because it wasn't out of our way, really. So it was
this
fine.
though is similar to Alex was just sharing about going to the Niagara Falls of some country.
Yeah, I don't remember which one it
I
was.
mean, he was talking about a lot of countries in our defense.
Let me look it up.
Okay.
And then it was like off season or whatever. So I love the idea of like, it's like the Niagara Falls of fill in the blank. And then
Montenegro. The Niagara Falls of Montenegro.
Whoa.
Yeah.
But he said it was also not quite as impressive as advertised.
yes. Also off season though.
Yeah, off season and not as much water.
Yeah. I think in the spring, this one's it's really wide and it's fairly torrential in the spring. It's still wide in the fall. It's just mostly rocks. So yeah. Then we visited the next day Bruno Canyon. So I mean, it's just one of those places. I don't know if I'd recommend it or not because it's a really long drive on a dirt road to get there. And you look it out and you look at it, and there's a canyon, and then you're like, okay, like there's no hiking there or anything. But it's a pretty deep canyon.
Okay.
Like again, like it's not as deep as Grand Canyon, but it's a pretty deep canyon. And you can't see it coming. You just see like landscape, and then you're like driving across an Air Force base where they're maybe like experimenting with like maybe their fuselage is going to drop on you. There's a warning sign, and then
wait. There's a warning sign that says beware dropping fuselages.
Not exactly. It said something about dropping objects, and then Jeff said that like part of the plane can come off while they're doing exercises. And I'm a little confused about why. But
I think if a part of the plane is coming off, you shouldn't be flying that plane.
Oh, that's the standard. Okay. Got it.
I mean, that's my standard.
Now I know.
If you're releasing bombs in real life, it would let something go, and maybe there's anyway.
But I also don't want to be driving through somewhere where planes are releasing bombs.
I'm generally weirded out with like small planes anyway, because there's a lot more fatalities associated with small planes.
Right, and you're coming up with a lot of standards right now that I feel like you just like, like it's sounding really picky at this point. Like you don't want anything falling off of planes. You don't want bombs coming off of planes.
It's true.
Wow.
I mean, I'm pretty picky, Cheryl.
Yeah, apparently.
I think you knew that by now.
Well, and I was like, this is an adventure, guys. Let's go. Also, I have a tendency, if I'm on a dirt road that's hard to turn around on, I just don't want to turn around, even if maybe I should.
Do you get extra, like, determined then?
Oh, my goodness, yes. Well, I told you on the South Dakota episode when Hillary went on that logging road with the cat in the middle of the night. And it got worse and worse, but we were like, let's go. After that, we went to Boise, and Cheryl had recommended a restaurant called Bacon, in all caps. And I went there.
Went, Lisa? Oh, so I did not
Bacon.
go to this restaurant, but the first night that we stayed in Boise, which listeners can hear about on my trip episode from this summer, but we ended up being there a night earlier than our original plans. And so we had booked an Airbnb for a couple nights, but we like had to tack on a hotel. And so Daryl found this like really fun downtown hotel, which I definitely want to go to again, like with him without a kid and like have a fun, like we are adults in a city, fun times. And I saw on Google Maps a restaurant called Bacon, in all caps, and we did not go there. But I was like, I remembered it clearly. It stuck with me. And that Lisa is a bacon lover. And so I was like, Lisa, you have to go there. So tell us everything.
Yeah. So they had like outdoor service, which was great for COVID. And they have bacon shooters, which is basically just different kinds of bacon served in a shot glass.
Okay. Ryan could get on board with those shots, I think.
Yep, that's the type of shot I'd do.
Shots. Yep. Yeah, they had like a rosemary bacon and like a kind of sweet
Ooh.
and spicy bacon.
Oh, fun.
And a Korean beef bacon, Korean style bacon. Yeah, it was pretty tasty. Being as we were this far into the trip, we had like not been eating too terribly, but we had a lot of lunches that were like sandwiches out of the car, and then like you go to a restaurant, it's hard to get a vegetable sometimes, like in the middle of Idaho. So I ended up getting a salad with bacon dressing because I was just really craving a salad at this point. But then I also got the bacon shooters and ate all
There
of
you
them.
go. Okay.
So
Okay.
I felt okay about
Yeah.
that. And I think Jeff got bacon mac and cheese because he's always going to get mac and cheese if it's on the menu.
I mean,
Wow.
that's fair.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were a mac and cheese connoisseur at one point in your life. Cheryl,
Yes, that's true.
Before your restrictions. But yeah, so after that, one thing I saw online was that there's a cool green belt in Boise. And so we rented bikes at a local bike shop and spent like 4 hours riding, and then we'd stop and do things. But it goes through the middle of town, the Boise River, not the Snake River, and it follows either side of the river. It goes through a bunch of different parks. It goes through the zoo, Cheryl. I think you went to the zoo. It goes like right by that. And we stopped at a couple of breweries and got flights. So there's a lot of breweries right near the river too. And then we returned our bikes, and the person working there was like, "This place is bigger than you think. There's a whole shop in the back." And we're like, "Oh, okay, let's check it out." And so I'm kind of getting to the point with my outdoor activities where I'm starting to think some of this REI gear looks pretty appealing, like having a rain jacket that actually works and keeps the rain out, which my current one didn't. I'm like starting to eye some things, but they're all so expensive.
Yeah.
So I've been like rationing, like 1 year I'll get hiking boots, and then next year, like I've been building up my hiking gear slowly each year. And we walked in, and there's like really discounted like secondhand outdoor gear in the back. And we had like I think maybe 20 minutes until the shop closed. So we were just going bananas, like running around looking at things, like trying to like pick out some stuff. Like I was like, wait, hold on, these Asus sneakers are literally $7, like, and they're like new. So
what?
I got new tennis shoes. I got a Marmot rain jacket that was like $40. Which I think normally
Marmot
like,
being the brand, not Marmot being the animal.
No,
Took
it
me a
wasn't a waxed fur jacket. No, I specifically chose this jacket because it can fold down really small, like, and I can put it in my backpack. It's one of those that, like, it's really waterproof because it crinkles whenever you move.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of annoying, but it works. So that was cool. It's called Boise Gear Collective, so I would totally recommend them. And then we got ice cream, and then we, the night before, we had an Airbnb booked, but the 2 days before that, they canceled on us.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Yeah. I've never had that happen before, but since then I've been reading some horror stories, and I think they can just do that. Like, and Airbnbs, like, they're supposed to refund you and stuff, which they did.
Yeah.
But they didn't say why. And at first I thought, okay, we need tonight when we get to our lodging, we'll do some research and book something else. But then we started talking. We're like, we're along I-84 for this portion of the trip. So there's towns, there's places to stay. It's Idaho in the fall, so in COVID, so there's not a lot of like, full hotels. This could actually be a night where we like just figure out somewhere to stay as we're going.
Yeah.
So I've done this. We did that. I've done it twice in my life now.
That's a pretty low number.
It is. I don't like to do it, but because I'm always worried about like, what if like we just can't find something? Like, what if we're between towns, or just like things are full, And I like to stay at cool Airbnbs where you can like plan ahead of time to get something specific. I also just don't like to worry about things. Like on my vacation, I want to kind of feel secure in that way. But like I said, I felt pretty confident, like, this particular time and place, we can find something, no problem.
Yeah.
So we ended up being at Hampton Inn. I saw a billboard about how they have waffles and Wi-Fi, and it was in the
Waffles
right
and
place.
What else do you need? Waffles and Wi-Fi. I'm
There
in.
it is.
And then they didn't have waffles because of COVID.
Whoa,
But-
whoa.
Oh my gosh!
What do you
I know,
mean they
right?
didn't have waffles because of COVID? Waffles are not going to give you COVID. You advertise waffles. You'd better supply
Oh my goodness!
waffles.
I need to call them and tell them my science friend gave him his professional opinion that they're not going to give you COVID.
No, I'm sure it had nothing
No.
to do with the waffles and had everything to do with the fact that you make them yourself and everybody's touching
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same
Everyone's
things.
touching all the things,
Yeah,
and
that's
a lot
probably
of the
reasonable.
places we did like 2 nights in Best Westerns and one in Campton, and everywhere like you either pick up front desk at the or breakfast, mixing my words, at the front desk, and take it to your room. Or one place they delivered it to your room and you like checked off things. One of the places you could get like 8 things. And so
Wow.
we just got all the things, and then they were hiking snacks, and I got an Uncrustable for the first time. And it was
those
pretty
like
good.
PB&J that just
Yeah.
that look like they look like calzones kind of.
Yeah.
Yes. It looks like a pastry,
They do.
except for like with whole wheat bread.
Yeah.
And then look, they do it really well, so the peanut butter is totally coating the bread, so the jelly's not seeping into it.
Yeah.
So it was good. I was like, I'll get this again. But yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah. So anyway, we kind of did a random hotel. Oh, that hotel! I did forget what room I was in when I went back out to the car, and I didn't have a key, so I had to go back to the front desk and ask them what room I was in again.
Oops.
And at one point I was knocking on different doors looking for Jeff.
Oh no.
Oops.
Oh my god! Because I thought I remembered the room number, but I mixed up 2 of the digits.
Oh, that's right.
Oh.
This is so funny because Lisa and I think Lisa and I are actually very good travel companions because we have different skill sets. Me and maps, it's just like not natural, and Lisa is very good with maps. But then I remember numbers and she just doesn't. And so whenever we stayed anywhere, she was like, "What room we were in?" And I was like, 4. Because, Europe, it's not like
Yeah.
all these like 3-digit numbers necessarily where you're staying. And she was like, "Oh, I didn't remember." And I thought she was joking. And I was like, "Wait, how did you not
No.
remember?" Because whenever something comes natural to you, it doesn't mean that you think about like it being difficult or you know what I mean? And so it was very funny.
Yeah, it's like there's just not a lodging place in my brain for a number that someone just told me. So
Yeah.
sometimes if I repeat them over and over again, I'm able to remember. But yeah, it didn't work this time. But anyway, a little bit of an embarrassing time where like, one guy was like, "Hello," from his room, and I'm knocking. "Oh, sorry, wrong room, sir." And then asking the concierge. But it all turned out okay. Yeah, and then we had our last day driving back along the Columbia River Gorge. After staying in a Best Western. So I picked up using Best Western rewards program again. I have a member card, and they have some promotions. Like at this time, every night you stayed during like a 1-month period, you got a $25 gift card for a future stay. So we did, which if you think about it, it kind of reduces the cost of the stay that you're staying in as long as you're going to use it.
Right.
And I was able to use points for one of the nights. Like, these are really old points. This is actually from back when Ben and I used to drive across Texas all the time when we were commuting from Colorado Springs to Houston. We basically just stayed in Best Westerns and accumulated a lot of points and got some free nights. And I had some left from there that I never used. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, they're still good. So I like Best Western. In Texas, they have waffles, and they're shaped like Texas.
There you
All
go.
of them? In every Best Western, they're Texas-shaped
Yeah.
waffles?
All the ones I stayed in.
Oh my gosh.
They're a little bit bigger because everything is bigger in Texas.
Of course.
Uh-huh.
You know that means it's a
Which is-
frozen item, though.
No, you make them.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
It's like
Okay.
a waffle iron that's shaped like
Okay.
Texas, and you pour
That's
the batter
surprising.
into it.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, then we drove along. This morning it's snowing again, but we get through some bad visibility to the Columbia River Gorge, and we drive along the south side and did a hike a little bit east of the Hood River along the old Columbia River Highway, which is above the current highway. So this is another, like, nice kind of flat-ish hike. So a lot of this trip we weren't challenging ourselves too much because we're, like, hiking every single day, and I didn't want to, like, have a really hard hike day where I was really sore the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So it was enough hiking that I was pretty tired by the end of it, but my body was still working okay. My knee was fine, you know. But yeah, I would totally recommend this hike. It was out of it's called the Twin Tunnels East Side Hike if you're looking at the app. And then we did like an hour in Hood River because in the fall they have the Fruit Loop.
What is the Fruit Loop?
It's a bunch of farmers and orchards and wineries, and they used to have a llama farmer involved, but not anymore apparently, where they have a market on their property. And if you like Google Fruit Loop map, it shows you all the locations on one map, so you can like just drive around and hit a bunch of farms and get produce. So we're like on our way home. We just got a ton of apples and squash. Went to a bakery. I didn't take any pictures because it was like going to close soon, so we were just like lightning speed running in and getting things and running out. Yeah, and then basically that's it. Like we hit a Burgerville on the way home.
Burgerville. Oh, I love
so
Burgerville.
Good. Yeah. We don't
Wait,
have
it's
any
a
of them
thing?
like that close to us.
Yeah,
but they're
it's a
in
chain.
North Oregon.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a chain,
Never
and
heard
it's
of it.
like, if you're south of Olympia, I think you're kind of starting to get into Washington. You're starting to get Burgerville territory.
Ryan,
but they have like
I would recommend it. It's not
good.
like, I don't know. It's like sometimes people rave about burger places. It's the reasons to rave about this aren't, I mean, their burgers are good, so you can get a good burger, but then they do a fun thing. They'll have like I don't know, like some like sort of like fried tempura veggie, but they do some things that are seasonal too. So like they have a hazelnut shake, but only when hazelnuts are in season, and they do some like local stuff too. And they have a salmon salad that is like not that much
yet.
and really good.
Ooh.
So that's really yummy. But yeah, it's like it's not gonna knock your socks off, but it's like it's a really fun burger place if you're looking for a burger place on a road trip. So yeah.
Yeah, and the seasonal shakes I would say are really good. Hillary got a pumpkin ice cream sandwich that she brought me one of recently, and that was excellent.
Ooh.
Like really flavorful.
That's fun.
Yeah, and good burgers. So it's a nice, it's easy place to hit on a road trip if you're in the southern Washington around I-5 North Oregon area. But yeah, that was our trip, and it was great because it was really refreshing to get outside a lot after working inside so much and have a reset on my sleep schedule and like just get exercise and like talk to some people, but like in a kind of big area, safe social distancing thing. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so definitely would recommend.
Awesome. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for sharing about your trip with us. We have a couple of questions for you. The first one is based on the title of our podcast, Take Me With You. If you could take us.
Have you heard of it? Have you heard of the podcast?
Yeah. You might be familiar.
A few times.
Okay. Just thought I'd
Heard
check.
it at least 3.5 times by now. So
well, you're assuming I'm listening to myself while I'm talking, which isn't always the case.
Okay, yeah, I get that. So if you could take us
Cheryl.
with you to just one thing on this trip, what would it be and why?
I think I would choose the night in Loman that we went to the hot springs in the dark and looked up at the stars, and then went and got pizza at the inn and talked to the owner.
That sounds so.
And you got sick.
Yeah, I would.
That's
I would
the
recommend...
one, right? Where you got so hot.
She
you
wants
got
more
sick. Okay.
people to like help her up that.
Yes.
steep
Well,
area.
I was trying to get dressed on some slippery black rocks, and it was just you held my 2 elbows while I put on my pants. It would have been great. No, I feel like it's chill, but it's really unique and special, and you would have loved the stars, Ryan.
Yeah.
There's just I think I could see a little bit of the Milky Way that night. And the pizza was fine, but it was like a nice environment.
Yeah.
Nice. I love that.
So, yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know the answer to this next one. I mean, I don't with most of our guests, but I can't think of what it would be unless there's something I'm missing. What's your next trip? Do you have a next trip?
I actually do not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm at this point probably gonna save my vacation time a little bit. Although the other day I was Googling the Incan Trail in South America, in Chile, but I don't think that's gonna happen in the next few months.
Lisa, by the time this episode comes out, you will actually last week, as of this episode coming out, last episode 114, is about the Incan Trail. So Ryan and I just got to hear all about it. It sounds amazing.
Perfect.
You're gonna need to work out more.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think.
Hey, I read an article about a 300-pound woman that did it.
Okay. Well, I'm happy for her. But I mean, if you're talking about the elevation that you were just describing, and that you were having a hard time in the elevation, it sounds like all of that is emphasized quite a lot on this. But it sounds worth it. It sounds very cool. So whenever they let us back in, or anywhere, whenever they let us leave, is that the better way?
Yeah,
no, let us in because it's other countries that aren't letting us in.
Well, it's both.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's both. Because we're also, we're not technically on stay-at-home orders here in Washington State, but we kind of are.
Yeah, but a lot of places in Europe are having outbreaks again, too. I don't know about Chile. I haven't checked, but
I will check.
Some of them are having resurgences, and then there's all the minks in Denmark have COVID apparently.
All the what?
Minks.
The animal?
Yeah, I heard about that.
I'm sorry, what?
They're farmed there. They're farmed for their fur.
Okay.
And apparently they can catch a strain of COVID, and it's really very virulent among minks. So there's been some culling among the minks as well.
Okay, so I know that our last guest just shared about this, and I should remember this, but I don't actually remember which South... Is it in Peru? It's Peru, right?
It's in Chile.
I thought it was Peru.
Chile?
Is it?
Yes, because it ends in Machu Picchu.
Machu Picchu, right?
Yeah,
and that's in Peru?
That's right. Okay, I was also looking at Patagonia, and I was going back and forth, and now I'm getting those mixed up.
Got it.
You're right, yeah.
Okay.
Because there's also some hikes in Patagonia that looked cool.
Okay, so according to Google, the Google Maps overlay, which if anyone didn't know, Google Maps on your phone, not actually on the internet, not in a full browser, but in the app on your phone, there's a COVID-19 layer that you can turn on, and it will show you, it will show you the rate. Now, I'm not quite sure. They tell you that the rate is per 100,000 people over the last 7 days, but those numbers aren't matching the rates that I'm seeing here in Washington State. So I'm not sure if the numbers, but it's all consistent. So you can actually compare. Right now, Peru is at 6.6 and it's trending down. So relatively speaking, not so bad in Peru, but that means that they probably don't want to let us in then, because here in Washington State, for comparison, they're telling
Trending
we're
up.
at 24.6 trending up.
Wait, what's that a percentage of?
It's not a percentage. It's number of cases per, I think it's number of new cases, I think is actually what it is, per 100,000 people. Yeah.
Per 100,000
so, yeah,
people,
number
okay.
of new cases per 100,000 people, a 7-day average.
Okay, that's a pretty useful number then.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I mean, we're on the West Coast, we're doing relatively okay compared to the rest of, not all the rest of the United States, but a lot of the rest of the United States. Like North Dakota, for example, they're trending down now from 193.5.
Wait, 0.5.
Whoa.
Yes.
Oh man,
Because you're taking the total number of cases divided by the total number of people, and to get it out of 100,000.
Okay.
You're getting it's
Yeah.
so it's a rate.
Cheryl's picturing the half case of COVID.
Yeah. Well, half case or half person.
Yeah, one of the two. Yeah.
I heard that Wisconsin is like worse than New York City was last spring.
Let's see. Wisconsin's at 107.7.
Like as far as like hospitals being overloaded.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, things are
Yeah.
not looking great hospital-wise. Europe is doing well. Some of the countries are starting to trend down now, which is good. France is at 54.5, trending down. Spain is 34.1, trending down.
Oh, nice.
Czechia, which is the Czech Republic, is at 57.1, trending down, which is good because they were at almost at 200 a week or two ago. But yeah, I mean, it is. We're definitely not through it yet.
Yeah, so it's hard to plan, but I'll probably just keep Googling fun things like that to think of ideas. And now I also have 2 trips planned from the past that I saved all my emails and notes from the trips I canceled. So if I ever want to do them
Nice.
again, I can just reschedule, not waste all that effort.
That's smart.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool part about canceled trips, and I think it is. I mean, you mentioned this at the beginning as you were talking about canceling a couple of different trips, but I think that for the purpose of saving yourself some anxiety, sometimes the best choice is to cancel earlier and then to not have to worry about if it's going to happen and to allow yourself to get excited for what can happen. And so you were like, cool, I know I can go on this trip to Idaho, and then you could like be all in on that. And if you're traveling for fun, then you would hope that experience, including looking forward to the trip, would be an enjoyable experience too, and not one of dread and unknown. So, yeah.
Yes, Cheryl, you're speaking from experience, and it's very true. That was good advice you gave me. Yeah, I think I was stressed about a few different things at that point, but you were like, thing you can control is canceling your trip, so just do it. You were right. So,
Lisa,
one more question. Yes.
do you have any travel questions for us?
So there's a question I haven't asked you before, and it's, can I get a sailboat? Chasing on the sunset as we go round and round the globe?
I got so confused. I was like, are we going to look into the logistics of buying a sailboat right now?
Oh no! It took me a second, but I got it. I got it before you said the rest of the lines. But I was like, so here's the other thing that's I mean, Cheryl's a little bit different, I think, because Cheryl actually does all the audio editing of our podcast. But of course, any listeners who listen, they hear the song at the beginning and the end of every single episode. But Cheryl adds those after we've recorded.
Oh,
So
yeah.
unless I
you're
go
not
back,
hearing it over and over again.
I'm
like
not
all the
hearing it. We
listeners
aren't hearing it
are.
over and over again during every episode. Cheryl does when she
Yeah.
puts it into the episode. But I am not even, I apologize to anyone who's offended by this. Right now, I'm not even listening to our episodes when they release.
I
used to listen to them all. Yeah. Well, I used to listen to them because I would listen to all of the podcasts I listen to while I commute to and from work. And so
Yeah.
now I'm not commuting. And so there's
Right.
I'm doing significantly less podcast listening overall. And I figured I kind of have already heard our podcast once, you know, the live part. So if there's any of them to cut out, that would be the one to go ahead and cut out. So
That's fine. I mean, you look like you're paying attention, so
I got you fooled.
I actually came up with a real question, and it's
Nope.
what are your go-to?
Nope. That was it. That was your question.
I said my question, but you didn't actually answer it. So
Yeah, you can get a sailboat. I mean, as long as you're not spending my money, I'm fine with that. So do what you're gonna do, Lisa. I don't know. It's your life.
There's not a podcast scholarship based on the sailboat theme song.
Oh my gosh! Imagine if this podcast was successful enough that we could like send people on trips. But when would we never not just send ourselves on trips?
I was going to say, okay, if our podcast, no, here's what you need to realize. If our podcast is successful enough that we're sending other people on trips, that means it is so successful that it is already sending us on trips.
That's true.
That's true.
Okay.
Right?
That's true. It's like beyond that point. So it's like go on a trip with Cheryl and Ryan. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We're just gonna start our own tour company now.
Well, you were
Okay.
talking about doing like day trips in Seattle at one point, Cheryl. But maybe
once things are
post-COVID,
open
we said
again,
something.
you know,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
down.
But yeah, so my real question is, what's your go-to road trip travel snack?
Ooh.
I don't have one. I haven't done a lot of road trips. I haven't done enough road trips to have a go-to, I don't think.
What did you eat when you went road tripping with Kyle? Do you remember?
No.
Ah.
I don't even remember. I mean, we had a cooler. We probably had like lunch meat and cheese. I'm sure we made sandwiches, but I wouldn't consider that a snack.
Yeah.
It's still road trip food. So like the category is
Yeah.
broadened a little bit if you go with that.
I don't think I have a go-to just because I haven't done, because a lot of people, I mean, you've done a road trip now, Lisa, Cheryl's done several road trips.
Mhm.
I've done 0 road trips this year. So yeah, I've only done a few road trips just kind of in general as an adult. Like most of my road trips was as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't
What
have a
do
good
you
answer.
wish it could be, Ryan?
Oh.
What would you pack
You're
as a snack?
you're
on your
asking a
next
food
road trip?
question.
But you like
You like
snacks.
some foods. You
I do, but like I don't know. I love popcorn. I always love popcorn.
Do you like bagged popcorn where it's like in a bag already popped?
It's
like all
fine.
those. It's doable.
Like kettle
I mean,
corn?
if
Like
it's-
kettle corn?
Oh gosh, kettle corn. I love kettle corn.
There you go.
I don't know that I could eat it. I would make myself sick if I brought it.
Mm.
Because like you get the, like in the summer, typically you go to a fair or a street fair or an arts and
Yeah.
crafts fair or something, and they have the big, huge,
fresh
like
and
balloon
warm.
tall kettle. I
Yeah.
can't not buy it.
Yeah, like 3 feet tall, but then you can eat it for like a few days.
I mean,
Yeah.
I have to work real
can.
hard not to eat it all in the one day.
Whoa.
I love popcorn.
That's impressive.
I love popcorn. And I love
But
I love snacking, like chewing on crunchy things,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
which is a problem because most crunchy things that I like to eat aren't good for me. Because people talk about, Lisa, you talked about how you craved veggies. Never in my life have I craved veggies.
Really?
No, I don't like most vegetables.
But like even if you've had a ton of unhealthy food, you don't get like a
Nope.
like your body's not like telling
Nope,
you to eat
not for
healthy?
vegetables. Vegetables are not appealing to me. Vegetables are things I eat because I know I need to because they're healthy. I don't ever like if you put a whole bunch of things out in front of me, one of them is vegetables, they will most likely be the last thing that I would pick. Like fruit, I love fruit. Don't love vegetables.
That's something.
Like vegetables I tolerate. I know, I'm terrible. It's awful. I'm a horrible person. But that's just the
I
reality.
mean, that's
You're
not
not.
really the
It's-
morality of a person is their love of vegetables.
Oh, I don't know. I think some people think it is.
No, it seems it's not moral. It's like almost like it's a disability, you know,
Yeah,
because it's
sure.
something that would help you, and it would be nice if you enjoyed it. It'd be good
Ryan,
for
you
you
are
if you enjoyed it,
disabled.
but you can't control that.
That's
I think
true.
you've tried.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, and I do it, just for the record, for those of you who are now concerned about my health, I do eat vegetables. As a matter of fact, today for lunch, what I had was something that had broccoli in it. Of course, the entire time I had it, I was bemoaning the fact that there was broccoli in it. And I was talking about how gross it was to myself because there's no one here. But I did eat it. I did eat it. So that was way more information. I didn't even answer your question. Cheryl, you should probably answer the question.
I have so many answers. So
Yeah,
on
awesome.
my road trip this summer, I think I did a really good job with food packing on the trip. And part of it, I've done a lot of solo road trips, and I do a lot of food packing with solo road trips as well. But with traveling with my husband and my stepson, just even when we're not traveling, in our daily lives, I try to make sure there are food options, there are snacks available. Somebody's getting hangry, I can put something in their hand, you know. And so I just like kind of take on that role anyway. So then, and going on a road trip where we were going through large lengths of time with like no food options, you know, if you're just like on a road in the middle of nowhere, you know, you better have lunch, not just snacks. And so
Right.
let's see, I'm going to just share a few things I got. I got a pack of Gatorade, the little Gatorades, because that's always a great thing to have. And then also a pack of apple juices for Jack. And that was good. And then just like a bunch of water, because it was like, we need extra water just around. And then I brought a loaf of bread and a thing of peanut butter and some plastic knives. And I don't think I brought jelly because we weren't doing anything cold. And I would have had to have like little individual jelly packs or something. But we just did we did a lot of moments of like peanut butter sandwich. Like we're at Crater Lake and had peanut butter sandwiches as we looked at the lake. And brought fruit snacks. Those are fun. And then I brought some crackers. And I did bring a bag of baby carrots and of sliced cucumber because I do love those things a lot, and it does give me that crunch. And especially on a road trip, there are moments where I'm just like craving fresh vegetables specifically, but then just in general healthy food like so much, and so that's nice to have. And then I love bars, all sorts of bars, you know, like there's all sorts of ones for kids now too, which is
But
great.
you're out in the middle of nowhere. There's bars for kids. Cheryl, I think we need to have a
bar.
talk about your principles as a stepmom here. I know you want to be the cool one, but I don't think that's the way
I'm
to
a
do it.
cool
He's
mom.
too young. I know you love bars. I know you love a good bar, but I think Jack's too young. What is he, 6? Definitely too young.
Oh man. But yeah, they're making so many different like protein bars and stuff for kids these days now.
Oh, protein bars.
Yeah.
And so it's fun because, and actually I like the kids ones too because they're more of a snack and less of a meal, and so they're like just the amount of calories and the amount of protein in them. And so but so I always just keep those on me, and I've kind of learned which ones each of us like and everything. And so those are such a nice option between meals. It's just like get some protein in your body. And then I also love the individual packets of peanut butter, like those Justin's ones are really nice snacks to have. I brought a lot of stuff.
Our X Bar does peanut butter packs too, and they also have some egg in them.
Oh,
and
nice.
some like other things, and they'll do like almond ones, but they're like with like maple syrup. And,
Nice.
like,
I love those. I
yeah,
haven't tried the
they're
RX
really
ones. I'll have
good.
to try that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'd recommend them. From the RX website, there's sometimes sales and stuff. Yeah, on this trip we did a big 5-liter jug of water that Jeff just has around for emergencies and for camping, and we refilled our water bottles from that.
Nice.
And that was really nice because we didn't have a lot of plastic that we used that way. And also when we were like staying in the yurt and we were using water to brush our teeth and do all those things, we just had it available.
On my first solo road trip, I had car problems and was stuck out at this hike I took in the sun, alone, waiting for a tow truck, long way from town. And I had
with
Gracie, yeah. And so that was a moment where I
Your dog.
realized, like,
Just to clarify, in
yes,
case
my dog,
people are
yes.
listening
That's
and
why
don't know
it's
who
still
Gracie is.
well, that's why it's still a solo road trip. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that at that moment, I had packed really well for the road trip, but those were all just things that I was like, oh my goodness, if I got stranded anytime, these would be good things to have. I had plenty of water. I had a camping chair, so I could just like hang out in my camping chair.
Mm-hmm.
I had a bowl for Gracie. I had food for Gracie. I had snacks for myself. Like I just found some shade. I was fine, you know. And so it was still like a bummer to have car problems on a road trip, especially by myself. However, I was really thankful that I was like safe and prepared and able to take care of myself. And so ever since then, I always just keep a gallon of water in my car. But on a road trip, it's going to be more than that because especially with several people, if it's a hot day, then you really need to make sure you have enough water. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. We also brought our electric kettle on this trip so we can make oatmeal in the morning.
Oh!
And like coffee. I think we brought our little like AeroPress and some coffee.
That's so smart.
And my original idea was we could get a car like electrical connection that goes into the cigarette thing to connect the kettle, but it didn't provide enough voltage.
Okay.
So that didn't end up working out. But we were still able to use it like at the hotels and like Airbnbs and stuff like that.
That's
so
such
I don't know
a
if it was
fun
absolutely necessary.
an amenity to bring, though.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like it's a car trip, so you can bring a few extra things. We had our like SUV, so there's plenty of room.
I love that idea of like, especially on a road trip where you have space. It's like, what's something that in your daily life you would use, and would you miss it if you're like trying to get comfy at a hotel one night, and like having hot tea in the evening or something like that, or oatmeal in the morning can be a really nice option. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and it let us. I mean, we bought like maybe one meal a day, or some days too, and that's just a money saver, and also allowed us to be a little flexible, being out in the middle of nowhere and not being as dependent on restaurants and grocery stores. So.
Nice. That's really cool. I like that.
Awesome. Well, good questions and great trip sharing. We are going to go ahead and move to the last segment that, of course, Lisa's an old pro on now, called Wish You Were Here. During this section, each of the three of us is going to highlight a travel attraction, something cool from other places we've been, kind of like a little postcard, little snapshot that says, hey, this thing was really cool. I wish you were here. Cheryl, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here this week?
I want to share about a place in Spokane that I like a lot. It is called Dry Fly Distilling, and they are a distillery.
Is it a bar?
Is it partly a bar?
They have a tasting room, and that's also where they're making their various alcohols of choice. And so you get to see their big machinery as well. But they have a lovely tasting room there, and when I went there, like the man, it's like his company, and he's the one making this, and he was the one serving us, and then like was telling us about the process of like how he was making these. It's like whiskey and gin and vodka and different things like that. And I think it's primarily whiskey, and it was so fun because, clearly this is his passion, and his business and stuff. And I love that. I love finding a small place that's small enough where the person who's making it is the one serving you, and you just get to talk about it, and so of course I did a flight when I was there because I always want to try all the things. It's such a fun place. But then also they've been so creative during COVID. And it's been really cool. Even just I follow them on Instagram and see what they're up to. But they were one of the places that started making hand sanitizer and donating it, which there were several different distilleries that did that because they already had the equipment to be able to do that. Since there is this in Spokane, they called it Spokanitizer.
Jeff Sneeze calls it handitizer.
Oh, that's
like hand sanitizer.
so
Marie. So the whole family says that now.
Sanitizer. I love that. And then they started canning their some of their products into drinks, like a cocktail in a can, which is not very common, actually. And I'm wondering if there's certain laws around it or something. But oh my goodness, they're good. And so I got them when Daryl and I went out camping in Idaho over Labor Day. We went to a grocery store in Spokane and they were selling it, and I had been seeing it on their Instagram all summer long and jealous of these drinks. And then I found it in a grocery store and I was like, we have to try them all. And so they just had they had a gin and tonic one that was just such a yummy gin and tonic. And, so different, they have like a spicy one that was really fun. So I would totally recommend, like, when you're in Spokane, you really got to go to Dry Fly.
All right. Great recommendation. Lisa, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here?
So I'm going to take you back to Mexico, which I was talking about on my exposure to other cultures. Same trip. In the Valley of Mexico, Teotihuacan, which is an Aztec pyramid site. Just half an hour outside of Mexico City. So it's somewhere that I was looking it up, you can take a bus or, which the bus is called Piramides, pyramids. Or there's like day trips you could like hire a guide and get in a van with a group of people and they'll tell you about it, starting from Mexico City. But yeah, we went with our group from our church, and, it's a pretty extensive site. It used to be a very large city, and there still exists some of the main plazas in the center of the city, as well as pyramids where there used to be rituals. I think there was maybe even human sacrifice there, so kind of
wow,
dark. Yeah. I don't know how much of the history that happened. But yeah, these pyramids are kind of basic pyramid shape overall, but different from the Egypt ones in that they have more steps and there's like 3 plateaus going up, or like terraces, I'd say maybe. And then the very top is flat. It's not totally pointed. And then there's steps kind of going up the middle, like really steep steps that at some points you're on your hands and knees, or at least I was going up.
Wow.
These.
So they do let you climb up.
Yeah, part of the
that's
visit.
cool.
At least when I was in high school, it looks like, I was reading about it a little yesterday. It looks like you still can climb up. It was like 200 steps, so pretty tall. The city used to cover 8 square miles. Yeah, it's the other thing I really remember is that in one of the plazas, the Quetzalcoatl Plaza, one of the people in my group was like, hey, if you clap, the echo sounds like a duck. And
and it
it
does?
was true. Yeah, it was really weird. I have no idea why.
That's cool.
But yeah, it's just a cool ancient site. It's pretty well preserved considering how old it is. Like, let me see what Wikipedia says. Its zenith was around 1 AD, although I guess some of it might be built before that. And the main 2 pyramids are the Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon.
Nice.
So there's a couple different ones to climb. And they've recently discovered there are tunnels beneath. So I don't know if you can get in there, but that's a recent archaeological study. Yeah. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site as well.
Nice.
Love it. Ryan, how about you?
Well, mine is not nearly that cool. Mine is a local, for us anyway, thing that actually I was already thinking about before we were talking about burger places. But there is a burger place that is just kind of local here to the Seattle area that I think is awfully fun. It's called Burger Master. And I'm going to specifically highlight the location that's in, I thought it was Kirkland, but it is technically a Bellevue address. But it's like South Kirkland, North Bellevue.
We've been there a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, very much so. And it's the thing that I like about it. It's not like the world's best burger or anything like that. The food is fine. It's, it's a fast food place. It's no big deal in that sense. but they still have it set up like you would think in the 1950s. You pull in your car and you can just dine in your car. They bring out you order from your car, and then they pull out the tray and they stick it on your window, and you can just sit in your car and eat. They're not on roller skates. Sorry. But it's a fun sort of different kind of experience. And their milkshakes are really good. My favorite is the blackberry milkshake. I really like their blackberry milkshake because they actually have pieces of real blackberry in it. So
It's also very COVID friendly. So, they're really ahead of their time with that.
Yep. That's clearly why they did it. Yeah. But if you want, it's on par for other fast food restaurants as far as cost goes. And I would say, it's not a bad burger, but it's not the world's best burger. It's definitely not gourmet, but it's good. And food tastes good and it's a fun experience.
Like kind of lower tier of gourmet, personally.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because I think it's definitely some steps above like a McDonald's or something.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's
Jack
true.
in the Box. Yeah.
But it's not like if you go there nowadays, there are burger restaurants that are, hoity-toity. Like, what's that one that I'm?
Oh, yeah.
I need to find these.
Oh, there are so many.
Tipsy Cow, like for example, Tipsy Cow, right? Like they do like fancy pants burgers, which are good. It's not like that. It's not fancy.
Yeah.
But I would
It's a
agree.
basic
It is.
burger.
It's it's a little bit higher quality than like a McDonald's or a Burger King, but it's not like a restaurant quality.
Right.
It's so
there you go.
fun.
Yeah.
It is. It's a lot.
And
of fun.
they probably have not had to change hardly at all in these times.
Probably not.
It just masks,
and I'm sure that they'll do, like to go. But you can always do that.
Yeah.
Right. You can just drive up and order off the menu right there because it's in front of your car, and then they just bring it to you in bags. I mean, they just have always done that. So.
Well, Lisa, thank you so much for being on our podcast today.
You're welcome.
Do you have anything that you would like to plug?
Yeah, just because I need to do a better job plugging this, I helped write a book a few years ago, and it is my late husband Ben Morell's writings from when he had cancer, edited down into a book form. And I think as we're going through a time of difficulty in our nation and illness, there's things that he learned and ways he processed things that could be helpful to a lot of people right now. He was a really good writer, and he had a journey through that time. That's why we published a book to share his journey with people. It's called Greatly Deeply, and it is on Amazon in Kindle and in paperback. Just $9.50 for Kindle, or sorry, for paperback. So, yeah.
Awesome.
It's a good read.
Yeah, I would recommend it. We would appreciate it if you all would follow us on social media. We are at Timwy Podcast. That's TMWY for Take Me With You Podcast. We are on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
You can also email us at timwypodcast@gmail.com. Send us suggestions of guests we should have on, topics we should cover, and tell us your go-to road trip snacks.
You can also call us and leave us a voicemail at 406-763-8699, or another way to remember that is 406-POD-TIMWY. We'd really appreciate it if you would rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it. Subscribe to make sure that you don't miss an episode, and share about this episode on your social media.
As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the awesome artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe. You can listen to Erica's music wherever music is sold or streamed.
And if you're Lisa, you know the song really, really well.
Yeah.
Well, Lisa, thank you again for being on our podcast and sharing about your wonderful trip to Idaho.
Absolutely.
Yay!
That's all we got for this week. So until next time, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you.
Take me with you.
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and a little love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here wanting to be